It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? We do. You do. From the Dixieline Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, coming off a great sports weekend, we welcome you to our Monday bonus podcast. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host John Riley, as we broadcast from our studios in San Diego. We welcome you. Have we got a lot of topics on the table? This podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you, and the new one that just opened in Dana Point in Orange County. You got projects for 2025. They have the materials. They can give you ideas, give you directions. They'll help you get your project built. Dixieline Lumber. John Riley, good afternoon. Did you send out a memo to everybody that we'll be here till dinner time? We have so many stories to talk about. There are stories breaking on top of stories hour by hour on Black Monday.
Black Monday, yeah, but there's a lot going on even beyond football. And look at all those notes. You're loaded. You're ready to go.
Yeah, we got a lot to cover. Just a couple of basic business items. You like sports? I invite you to check my website. It is written every day. It's there first thing in the morning. Just punch it up, LeeHacksawHamilton.com, and you won't believe the volume of information. You might be a football junkie. You may like the NBA. You're all things baseball. You'll follow the NHL. You can just pick the topic you want to cover. It's right there on my website every day. When you go to my website, also, there's a big orange box on the homepage. Fill that out and join us. Become part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. We want you to share. We want you to subscribe. When you share, tell everybody what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. When you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you thereby get the alerts every time one of us puts something up on my YouTube channel, which is quite often. And you're all on social media. I want you to join my Twitter Insiders Group, Hacksaw's All-Star Team. Just go to X, type in my handle, at Hacksaw1090, at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button. Every time I load something onto X, you'll get that notification too. John, topics on the table. This table is going to be full before the day is done. Where do you want to start?
Okay, it's Black Monday in the NFL, and some guys are getting pink slips today.
Yeah, real tough day around the National Football League. Let's just talk about who's gone where, what has happened to people. NFL Black Monday. Actually, it started on Sunday. New England hit the eject button on Jared Mayo after 1 year, after a 4-13 season. This guy was handpicked by Robert Kraft in consultation with his former head coach, Bill Belichick, and it just blew up. Game day management was awful. Message to players was awful. Communication was awful. By the way, the roster was terrible too. It had been theorized that Mike Vrabel and Brian Flores, 2 veteran head coaches out on the street, were going to be the lead guys for the New England job. But today, the Patriots asked for permission to talk to Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator of Detroit Lions. Makes sense. Why? New England's got high draft picks, first, second, third round. New England's already got a quarterback in place in Drake May. Why not go get an offensive guy? Now, the other argument is, you want to change the culture of Patriot football? Well, then Vrabel, Brian Flores might be the guys to do that. So New England's the first one that hit the eject button. The Cleveland situation, they kept the coach. They kept the general manager, despite just a wretched season. But they fired the offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. They fired the offensive line coach. The Browns have got a massive problem at quarterback, too. Raiders, no decision yet on Antonio Pierce. He was really nasty in his postgame press conference after the battering on Sunday at the hands of the Chargers. Antonio Pierce just does not know whether or not he's going to be retained. The players want him. General manager may not want him. Mark Davis is going to ask Tom Brady for his ideas as a consultant as to what they do with Antonio Pierce. Evidently, Pierce feuded with Tom Telesco, the new general manager, because Mark Davis gave Telesco final say on the roster. Antonio Pierce, during the draft, demanded, pounded on the table, the Telesco trade up to get Jaden Daniels. Instead, Washington made the deal Washington got a great quarterback. Telesco does not have a history of trading, and the price tag would have been awful steep. And instead, the Raiders kept their picks, and they wound up with 3 starters coming out of last year's draft, doing it Telesco's way. I just don't know if Pierce is going to survive this. Remember, this is a Raider franchise that has 2 winning seasons in 22 years. It's a Raiders franchise that's 102 games under 500 since 2003. And Mark Davis may be about to hire his 6th head coach in a 12-year window. There's no continuity, there's no stability, there's no credibility in Raider football, so that's the latest situation there. As expected, Jacksonville hit the eject button on the coach, Doug Peterson. Weirdly, did not hit the eject button on the general manager, Trent Baalke. They were wrecked by injuries this year. They were a disgrace on defense. Obviously, there's going to be some changes there. Hot name in Jacksonville, Liam Cohen, offensive coordinator who's done genius things working with Baker Mayfield with the Tampa Bay Bucks. That might be a slam dunk. The Liam Cohen comes in with the mandate, fix Trevor Lawrence, fix the offense that was all chewed up by injuries. New York Giants, weird. Did not fire anybody. John Mara in the early hours on Monday, Giants owner said, we're staying with Joe Schoen as general manager. We're staying with Brian Daboll as the head coach. They had no quarterback. They had no offense to speak of. That's kind of weird considering how bad Giant football has been the last 2 years. New York Jets, you know it had to be drama because it involves Aaron Rodgers. Just a miserable season. And, of course, they fired their coach and their general manager in the middle of the season. They're interviewing everybody. Tomorrow they're going to interview that loudmouth on TV, Rex Ryan, who thinks he should be the guy. Having failed before with the Jets, having failed before with the Buffalo Bills, he thinks he's the guy. I don't know about that. Rex Ryan, though, went on TV on Monday and said if he gets the job and he thinks he's the guy for the job, he says the country club atmosphere that Aaron Rodgers thinks he's running is going to end. So the Jets got real issues. Now, the Jets have already interviewed Vrabel, have already interviewed Ron Rivera, and they've kind of intimated, we want a culture change. Today, the Jets asked for permission to talk to Brian Flores, Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator. Elsewhere, Cincinnati fired their defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. They also fired their linebacker coach, their D-line coach, and their offensive line coach. 3 categories that the Bengals were just horrible. And here you have Joe Burrow, who throws 49 touchdown passes, throws for almost 5,000 yards, and he's going to be like you and me watching playoff games on TV. I mean, it was just a terrible set of circumstances. And this is all on Mike Brown. This is on the owner of the team. No decision in Dallas yet. Mike McCarthy's got a phenomenal in-season 1-loss record. Postseason with the Cowboys, he's won only 2 games in all the years he's been there, but yet he's held in high regard by Jerry Jones. And Jerry just likes to be the center of attention. He's going to drag this out a little bit till he can have the spotlight, and then he'll probably make the decision. I'm staying with Mike McCarthy. It is interesting, though, name surfaced today, Cliff Kingsbury, who is the current offensive coordinator up in Minnesota. Kingsbury, former head coach, Arizona Cardinals, has kind of rebuilt his resume. Might he be the replacement if Jerry Jones decides to make a move and get rid of Mike McCarthy? Chicago, they're asking to talk to everybody. Today, the Bears just asked for permission to talk to Aaron Glenn, Vance Joseph, those are defensive coordinators, Ben Johnson, obviously in Detroit, and Anthony Weaver, defensive coordinator down in Miami. So the Bears are running the gauntlet of a whole bunch of, quote, name guys. And New Orleans, which had been linked to John Gruden, amongst others, including Brian Flores, New Orleans is bringing in David Shaw, former head coach at Stanford, who did a phenomenal job in the Pac-10, Pac-12, and kind of served as an NFL consultant this year. He's the son of Willie Shaw, a longtime NFL assistant coach. So suddenly it's a very different name to be interviewed there. So, John, that's the laundry list as of this hour as we take the air on Black Monday. I am stunned the Giants did not remove anybody. And in terms of the Raiders, They got a real tough situation because the players like that guy, Antonio Pierce. That coach doesn't like the general manager. The GM's got the power, and they don't have any talent on the roster, especially at quarterback. So I ran through all over the roadmap in the NFL. Go ahead, pick a topic.
Dysfunction with the Raiders?
Oh, you think?
You think? This is like an ongoing thing. It's been like that forever. Hopefully Tom Brady will bring some common sense here and straighten it out. But let's talk about Jacksonville for a minute. Peterson, a couple of years ago, we were singing his praises.
Yeah, that first great year.
Yeah, he was terrific, and they took out the Chargers in the playoffs, and now suddenly he's like persona non grata. I mean, it's amazing how quickly it changes.
Well, the quarterback fell apart. That was a big issue. Quarterback's been hurt. Defense was just decimated. They were giving up 390 yards a game, just wrecked by injuries. But Peterson seemed to lose control of the team, and the team didn't respond, didn't play well. I mean, there's 53 guys on that roster. You lose a guy, next man up has to play well. And they just totally fell apart. So Peterson, I think, saw the writing on the wall at midseason. The owner's been very, very stable. Shad Khan does not have a history of hitting the eject buttons, but he does make mistakes. He is the one that hired Urban Meyer, and that was 11 months of hell.
That was horrible.
That was quote dysfunction squared. But they're going to go get somebody. If they get Liam Cohen, bright light offensive guy, comes from Tampa, then he puts his fingerprints around Trevor Lawrence to see if they can fix that offense, because they were not competitive at all.
Did you get a sense that Jared Mayo in New England was sort of a placeholder? Because I remember when Belichick stepped down or was let go and Mayo came in, he didn't come in with a bunch of fanfare and a lot of hope. He was like a guy, part of the Patriot culture, but he's only there one and done, 1 year.
But he was there as an assistant, and he played for those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And this deal to put him in place, I think, was agreed upon 3 years ago. It was agreed upon before Belichick retired or was forced out.
Head coach in waiting.
Yeah, exactly. But boy, he didn't do well. Their game management was just horrible. You add into the equation some of the other stuff that was going on. His press conferences were all over the place. He was condescending. He kept changing his mind about what his philosophy was in dealing with things. They delayed the start of Drake May at quarterback instead of going to Jacoby Brissett, and they wasted a third of the season while they were losing. So there's a whole bunch of game management things, day of game issues that didn't work out for Jared Mayo, and people didn't like the facade. The Boston media was really tough on him because things just kept getting worse. So did Robert Kraft admit he made a mistake? No. Robert Kraft admitted it's time for a change. So 1 year in, bingo, he's out the door. But the fact he's got that quarterback in place and he's going to have all these high draft picks, New England could flip this pretty quick, and they do have a lot of salary cap space too.
Yeah, interesting. It's just as the world turns. And then David Shaw, I mean, we were talking about him as a potential Chargers head coach for a little bit. But yeah, he was at Stanford, and he seems like a very quality guy. He might be the next man up.
I think his record at Stanford, I want to say, was 94-46. That's
good.
A tough place to recruit to because of their academics, and obviously now because of NIL money, and comes from great bloodlines, and he's just highly regarded. And he had been in the NFL as an assistant before he wound up taking the Stanford job. So maybe he's a long shot, but obviously somebody in New Orleans likes David Shaw's credentials.
Well, all right, right on. Maybe some changes with the Saints.
So that's where we are in Black Monday. We're not done yet. Giant fan. Holy cow. Can you imagine doing a sports talk show today at WFAN in New York, where you got the garbage that is New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers and all that drama. And now you got the Giants saying, stay the course. Stay the course after that crap, what you did to the roster. And the owner says, stay the course, keeping the coach and the GM. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was surprised they kept Dayball. But, I mean, yeah, if you were doing sports talk in New York, that would be electric. I mean, especially with all the Yankees-Mets stuff, too.
Yeah, so that's what's going on. You got an opinion. Anybody from the Raider Nation out of jail on bail, you got a stolen computer, join us on Fans Forum. Get into the chat box and tell us what you think the Raiders should do with Antonio Pierce, what Mark Davis should do, the clout that Tom Brady has. Who would you hire? One name that's going to be out there that has not been linked in the last 24 hours is Pete Carroll. Man of great credibility.
Yeah, for sure.
But they got to get him a quarterback. But if Telesco is making the decision, maybe Pete Carroll fits there better than other places. Okay, that's all things Black Monday. Join us in Fans Forum in the chat box right now. We go from that to what happened on the weekend on the field.
Yeah, shootouts, blowouts. Look at all these teams on the list.
Okay, let's just run through this. The Chargers are ready for postseason. They're going to go play Houston. The Chargers destroyed the Raiders. Out-of-town scoreboard does not lie. The Chargers had 474 yards in offense. Justin Herbert was absolutely phenomenal. Threw for 346. He finishes the season with 23 touchdowns and only 3 picks. I mean, those are unbelievable modern-day throwing numbers. Quentin Johnston had a game of his life. Only game he's contributed like this in 3 years. 13 catches, 186.
Hey,
that's pretty impressive. But he's playing the Raiders who didn't cover him and got a crap secondary now. Can he repeat that next week when it really counts in the playoffs? Raiders defense was just deplorable. Raiders defense was on the field for 71 snaps. Chargers ran 71 plays. The Raiders only ran 48. And, at the end of the day, the Raiders are 102 games under 500 since the 2003 season. So, impressive win, Chargers, Raiders. Detroit, Minnesota. Vikings went on the road. Vikings got ripped. Lions just tore them apart. Jared Goff outdueled Sam Darnold. The pressure on Darnold was unbelievable. He threw his worst game, I think, of the season. I think he threw for 134 yards. He just had no help at all. So Detroit takes out Minnesota. You got the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore just slugs their way to victory over Cleveland. Lamar Jackson, 417 yards. He finishes the season with almost 4,200 yards passing and 915 yards rushing. He's got like a 5,000-yard season.
Wow.
I mean, that's amazing. And Derrick Henry's got 1,900 yards rushing this season for the Ravens. So they are the real deal. The Rams, it was weird. They lost to Seattle. Jimmy Garoppolo, though, played pretty well. 334 yards, couple of touchdowns in the loss. Geno Smith threw for 323 and 4 touchdowns. But the Seahawks don't make the playoffs because they lost a whole pile of tiebreakers. Even though they finished with the same record as the Rams finish in first place in that division. We haven't talked about Carolina since the middle of the season when they sat their number 1 draft pick quarterback down, and everybody thought that's turned out to be a terrible pick. Tell you, Bryce Young has played really well. Carolina posted a 44-38 win yesterday over Atlanta. Bryce Young throws for 253 and another touchdown. Michael Penix, very impressive, 312, 3 touchdowns, but Atlanta doesn't make the playoffs because of the whole Kirk Cousins fiasco. Houston Texans, real deal. Dameon Pierce, who has had flashes as a running back of being a big-time power guy and then kept getting hurt. Dameon Pierce ran for 176 yesterday. Hey, Charger defense getting ready for the playoff game? That's Dameon Pierce. That's big, wide-body Dameon Pierce who trampled the last guy for 176. You think you're a man? Can you stop him? This bears watching. They just absolutely destroyed Tennessee. So you got all that. New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers actually had a pretty good final game of the season. Is it the final game of his career as a Jet? Is it the final game in the NFL? Threw for 274 and 4 touchdowns. Jets defense, which can be Jekyll, can be Hyde, had 4 takeaways yesterday. And then you got San Francisco. They're 6-11. What a shocker. The wreckage there with injuries and attitudes. They got beat by Arizona. A lot went wrong this season, and now we just wait to see what happens in terms of a change in this roster, because I got to believe there's going to be changes in San Francisco. And in Arizona, they were good one week, bad another week. You never know what you're going to get from Kyler Murray, aside from touchdowns and turnovers. They wound up winning final game of the season, but it's meaningless because they cost themselves the playoffs by falling apart at the end of the season. So now we're going on to Wild Card Weekend. This is going to be fun. Green Bay goes to Philadelphia. We'll be talking more about this on the Thursday podcast, but I would want to play the Eagles right now because the Eagles really believe in themselves. The most interesting game to me is Washington at Tampa. Jaden Daniels against the BUCS defense. Jaden Daniels against Baker Mayfield. And then the Vikings come out to the West Coast. Vikings, they're going to have to prove themselves on the road. But this is in the playoffs, and it's going to be in the sunshine. It's not going to be in cold weather. So Minnesota Rams. So those are the NFC games. AFC games is the best thing could happen to the Chargers. They go play in Houston, Pittsburgh. Holy cow. They got to go to Baltimore in cold weather. And you got Denver. Holy cow. 2, they got to go play in Buffalo in cold and snow. So NFC playoff games are going to be fun to watch. AFC games, there's some bad outcomes probably coming there. So, John, that's what happened in the NFL Saturday, Sunday, and obviously the matchups going forward. And John Riley says,
you know, I was watching that Sunday night game. I was expecting it to be like this blowout, shootout game, and it was just so low scoring. And it looked like Sam Darnold was like, I don't know, 4 for 35 at some point. Nothing he threw seemed to, no one could catch a ball. He was under so much pressure. And you see, was it Ada Hutchinson there, like coaching up his guys, even though he's hurt? Apparently he could come back if the Lions make the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So at this point, Minnesota got overwhelmed. It, you know, part of me says, you would say, well, yeah, it wasn't a very good game. Part of me says that kind of looked like street tough NFC North black and blue type football.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way they played. So what do you think about the wild card weekends?
Oh, it's going to be great. Now, you were talking about Philly, Green Bay, but isn't Jordan Love hurt? Didn't he hurt
his hand or his wrist?
Yeah.
But I assume he's going to be good to go because he was walking around on the sidelines afterwards. He didn't have a cast on it or anything. So I think that's going to be a good game. I'm fascinated to see Baker Mayfield against a kid quarterback in Washington.
That's going to be a great game as well. But I would imagine weather is going to be an impact here because the parts of America are just still getting dumped with snow.
Pal, it ain't snowing in Tampa.
Oh, yeah.
Now, other places, hell yes. Chargers. Now, are you going to berate me? Are the people in Fans Forum going to berate me because I'm still a doubter? You know, Chargers have only beaten one team with a winning record this season. And now they're going to Houston. And I'm invoking my Carolina Panther phrase. You're not playing Carolina or the Raiders or some of these other have-nots. You're playing real playoff people. What do you think about the Bolts in Houston?
Well, the Texans have not been all that sharp these last few weeks going into the playoffs. So, I mean, if you had to pick a draw against any one of the division leaders in the AFC, that's the one you'd want. Yep. So, you know, let's see what happens. Let's just hope it doesn't turn into a disgrace like it did in Jacksonville 2 years ago.
Well, you keep going back to bad news.
Well, that's what you get with the Chargers. They're always imploding somehow.
Okay, you got a comment. Fans Forum chat box is open. What do you think about the playoffs? Say, just an express an opinion. Just fill up the right side of our screen has all the chat box contributions. So bring the heat, meat. We want to hear what you got to say so John can preview it and put stars next to the many ones that we're going to take. Okay, we go from all things football. Oh, this is too hot to touch. Let's talk baseball.
Yeah, and we're already hearing all kinds of rumors today. I mean, let's break it down, Lee.
Okay, let's talk about the late-breaking story involving Padre ownership. Sportico, the business sports website, broke a story a couple hours ago. A 91-page lawsuit has been filed by the widow of Peter Seidler against 2 of the Seidler brothers. He has charged Matt and Bob Seidler have illegally purchased low-price shares of the Seidler Trust to take over control of the trust. The trust runs the Padre franchise. The 2 brothers want to become the control people, indicating that the widow has no business experience at all and is not qualified to, quote, be the point person to represent the franchise in all MLB business decisions. She filed a 91-page lawsuit asking for an injunction in the state of Texas. She also, this morning, wrote a 5-paragraph letter to Padres season ticket holders explaining why she felt she had to do this at this point in time. Now, just last month, John Seidler was named the point person. He is not named in this lawsuit. 2 other brothers are. She's alleged they did illicit things to get stock purchases to take over majority control of the trust, which controls the Padre baseball franchise. This is a really ugly situation. And by the way, this is a franchise that's done nothing in terms of offseason expenditures, have not spent $1 on any free agent players. Now, that being said, I've been told the Padres are going back, talk to Jurickson Profar, and are willing to offer him 1 year and a second-year option with a pay bump. But they're not going to go from 1.5 to $15 million that Scott Boras wants. They're willing to go 1.5 to 8 with an option, which sounds feasible to me.
Yeah.
If the Padres can afford an $8 million deal. The Padres evidently are still talking to Hye-seong Kim about possibly re-signing, though they don't know that he'll be ready to play till June 1st. They're evidently interested in a lower price first-year deal. He was supposed to earn 8. They might go to 6 with the first year, with an option for a big pay bump the second year if he has a big bounce back season coming off the labrum surgery. Third item, can you catch? They need a catcher. I was told they're looking. I don't know that they're going to do this. They're looking at Dodger catcher Diego Cartaya. This guy was a red hot prospect. Got injured 2 years ago at AA. Took him a while to get healthy. Came back, played last year, AA into AAA, did not hit worth a lick. The Dodgers just DFA'd him, which means he's on the open market for 10 days. Somebody can claim him. Dodgers either have to trade him or have to release him over the next 10 days. I was told the Padres are doing their, quote, due diligence to see why this number one prospect hit 228 1 year and hit 208 last year in AAA. And is he the right guy if they're searching for another catcher? And the final story that just broke, the Padres have reopened trade talks for Luis Arraez to the Yankees. And it's evident to me the Padres have to move a name player with a big price tag next to his name to get him off the payroll. And the Padres evidently are not interested in going arbitration with Arraez. The price tag is $14.6 million for a three-time Major League hitting champion. They're not going to pay that for a singles hitter who can't run and doesn't play much defense and has no power. The Yankees evidently are interested in Arraez as a second baseman with insurance policy, maybe to also be a first baseman in behind Paul Goldschmidt, whom they got. Padres are asking for one of the Yankee young pitchers if they make the Arraez deal. So there's an awful lot there as it relates to the Friars. Couple of other baseball notes. Angels have opened talks with Peter Alonso of the New York Mets, power hitting first baseman. Angels are willing, I was told, to go 3 years. Now, Alonso doesn't hit for average. Alonso's an emotional leader. He's hit 226 home runs. 3-year deal. He's won 5. Even the Mets haven't given him 5. They've talked to Alonso, and they've talked a 3-year deal to Oriole power hitter Anthony Santander. Now, Alonso's hit 226 home runs in the course of his career. Santander's hit 155. The problem is Santander wants a 5-year deal. Toronto is evidently willing to go 3. I think the Angels are willing to go 3 there. And one other Angel note. You remember the terrible death of Tyler Skaggs?
Yeah.
The drug overdose death, the conviction of their public relations director who was selling drugs to players within the organization. A judge in the lawsuit of the Tyler Skaggs family, they are suing Arte Moreno and other administrators. A judge has just cited Arte Moreno for failing to turn over, quote, discovery for all the lawyers. They wanted emails. They wanted text messages from all these cell phones. They've petitioned 77 different Angel employees. They want their media devices to see what was said back and forth between executives about Eric Kay, who's doing 22 years in prison for dealing drugs that killed Tyler Skaggs. So Arte Moreno's, he's got a real big problem off the field because now the judge has said, you failed to cooperate. Is Arte going to get found in contempt of court on that situation? So that's all things there. And for the Dodgers, the Dodgers situation, where are we going? Looking for more help. The Dodgers won the bidding war to get hye-seong Kim, not the Padres shortstop. This is a star Gold Glove second baseman who came from Korea. He just signed a 3-year contract with 2 option years after that to go to the Dodgers. He's a lifetime 304 hitter, 4-time Gold Glove guy. He might be the starting second baseman for the Dodgers in place of Gavin Lux. He can also play short, and he could be an insurance policy guy at third. His signing kind of came out of nowhere because a lot of people thought he was going back to Japan, but the Dodgers got him dirt cheap. They got him for $4 million a year for the next 3 years with the options after that. So the Dodgers have been pretty active there. So, John, there's a ton of stuff there. If you want to talk about the Padres, talk about the Angels, talk about the Dodgers. I told you my notebook was really full today.
That was an unbelievable amount of stuff right there. So let's talk about the Padres. The big news is with the Seidler family and all of this drama. You know, we thought the drama was solved. We thought when Seidler took control, as the Seidler family was going to be in charge of this for generations. And why wasn't there a plan laid out in front? You know, why wasn't there like a will or something that clearly legally says who's the next person in charge?
I concur with you wholeheartedly. Now, I'm going to give you a different reaction, though. The point person that represents the Padres on every type of transaction at the Major League Baseball level, that's TV contracts, that's rule changes, that's anything that comes out of the commissioner's office, there needs to be a person. Should that person, though, not have a lot of business experience, rather than Sheil Seidler, who's got absolutely no business experience at all? So do the brothers have a right to question why she's the point person or wants to be the point person? Or do the brothers do something illegally to buy up all the stock from minority holders in the trust to actually get control of the trust? You tell me.
Well, I mean, it shouldn't be. I mean, this isn't a matter of legality, I don't think. I mean, if Sheil Seidler was given the rights to the team as part of her, marriage relationship with Peter Seidler, then she should have that. But I remember Ron Fowler was always the guy that would go to those MLB meetings, and obviously he's now taking a lower position. Why can't Sheil Seidler still be the number one, and then she can have the brothers there as her wingmen that all would take various levels of responsibility? They could work this out. It shouldn't be this much drama.
Now, the point person has to be the biggest majority owner of stock in the franchise.
Oh, wow.
She can't sublet the decision-making to somebody else. Go to the meetings on my behalf. That doesn't work that way.
Well, then she should go to the meetings. I mean, she can make business decisions. I mean, I don't know what her background is, but she's been involved in this for a while. She's got people that will advise her. She probably knows what's on the agenda for these meetings. So I don't know. I'm really concerned because we're already worried about how much payroll the Padres can spend or not spend. This just creates more turmoil around that.
Okay, quick response to the Angels. I kept saying, if Artie Moreno wanted to do something with established name players, he'd get his credibility back pretty quickly. I mean, if you go get Santander or Peter Alonso, that's a real positive. He tried hard to get Arenado, but he said the Cardinals got to pay a piece of the $64 million that Arenado is still owed. St. Louis has said no. And Artie Moreno said, I'm not sending you Reed Detmers and somebody else just for Arenado. You got to pick up some of the price tag there. So wouldn't that be a positive move if they got the polar bear, Pete Alonso, to come from the Mets to play for the Halos?
I think it'd be great. I mean, it's nice to see them going after some name players, and they're not just basically blowing their money just to get some guy with some credibility. I mean, Alonso is a big time power hitter. Santander is a rising star. I mean, it'd be great to see them do that. But do you think the timing is interesting right around this potential lawsuit around Tyler Skaggs? Do you think this is a way to put some positive PR around it to say, hey, we're going for players now. We're actually going to spend money now?
No, not really, because I've already signed 7 or 8 guys, plug-in guys, the Kyle Hendricks, the Travis d'Arnaud's of the world. It's not like they've done nothing. I don't think one has anything to do with the other. Alonso is part of the second tier of free agents and had to wait till Juan Soto signed his contract, and Bregman is still not signed, and he may not, Pete Alonso may not sign till Bregman commits. I hear Bregman has reopened talks with the Boston Red Sox immediately. So I think once Bregman comes off the board, then Alonso is in the pecking order, probably is the next guy to go, and he'll have Bregman's dollar value to negotiate off of. What do you think about this whole Moreno discovery lawsuit?
Yeah, this is with the drug situation.
Skaggs.
Well, what wasn't the guy that's in jail was he like a strength and conditioning coach?
No, he was a public relations director.
A public relations director.
And he had a drug addiction himself, which the Angels knew, and the Angels got him into rehab. The Skaggs family is saying the Angels should have known that this guy was continuing to deal, and the Angels said they had no knowledge.
Well, if you got a drug dealer on the payroll, you got to fire the guy. I mean, come on, right? I mean, it's one thing, you know, Artie Moreno wants to do the right thing for the Skaggs family, but you got to clean up your business in your front office if you got this kind of nonsense going around. And was it opioids or what was the drug? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was all types of opioids, and he was dealing it to Tyler Skaggs, and Skaggs got addicted to painkillers, and he wound up dying because of, I guess, it was fentanyl.
Yeah.
But why would Moreno and his people, his president Dennis Cool at that time, why would that, because of discovery, why would they not turn over the data? Isn't that mandated?
Okay. You know, it's funny is you're criticizing the Padres for possibly having Shield Seidler, but doesn't have any business experience. They have Artie Moreno with all the business experience making bad business decisions. This reminds me of the Gruden thing, you know, with the emails and everything. You have to be transparent. The minute you try to cloak information, it creates a negative look, and it's gonna come back to bite them in the butt. You got to come out forward with everything.
And what's your take on the Dodgers and Hye-seong Kim, the Korean Gold Glove second baseman?
Yeah, this is going to send all of us into a tizzy with Hye-seong Kim and Ha-seong Kim and everything else.
And they're not related,
but you know, you get him, and now suddenly Gavin Lux is expendable.
Yep.
You know, so they got some decisions to make there. But I think, you know, the catcher, what was it, Cartaya? Was his name? I think this might be an example of how that 40-man roster just got too full. You know, and they have to start shedding some guys because they've signed so many people in LA. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, I mean, you look at now, the other angle to this is that the Dodgers are doubling and tripling down as the Pacific Rim team.
No doubt about it. So we're only into January. Now, granted, we got 6 weeks before pitchers and catchers report to the Cactus League and the Grapefruit Circuit. Man, there's a ton of baseball out there. So the fans forum chat box is open. We invite first timers to jump on board. You got an opinion? How concerned are you about the Seidler civil war in the ownership box? You want to talk about what the Angels should do, haven't done, and this whole Moreno situation? Looking for Dodger Blue fans to feel free to pile in, pile on. Go ahead, you could flash us your World Series ring. You earned it. You deserve it. So be it. Hey, we get to halftime. This podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. When it comes to projects, they have materials. When it comes to ideas, they can be your best friend and your consultant. John, we both use Dixieline. We're really pleased. You know how cold it is outside in San Diego overnight? Well, I got new windows and doors, and my house is sealed tight, and it's warm. This sounds stupid. I run my thermostat at 64 at night, and my place is sealed up, and it's warm. You got doors, you're painting, you're going to renovate the studio. These guys Dixieline's got such an experience factor in the industry.
You sleep at 64 degrees, man. You're snug as a bug on a rug, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, it's just about everything you need. And you know what's the one hot issue for at Dixieline in this time of the year in January is storage products. You know, people are buying these big plastic bins, and then they want to have like racks and shelves in the garage and places to store those. They even have you ever seen those racks that like hang from the ceiling?
Yep.
You know, which you can put above your car. You can really fit everything in your garage nice and organized. They've got all of that there. And yeah, we're going to be doing some work here in the studio to make it look a little bit better. And we're going to be talking to Dixieline for help there as well.
So you saw my garage. So you're going to buy me some of those big plastic bins to put all my library, my books in my garage.
You need Marie Kondo to come. You know who Marie Kondo is?
Yes.
Yeah, you need Marie Kondo to come over and just clean up your house and like give away things. I mean, you have so much memorabilia in your garage. It's unbelievable. But yeah, Dixieline could come in there, storage, shelving, plastic bins. They'd file it all. We get it all organized, and they've got it. They got everything you need.
Dixieline Lumber, 9 locations in San Diego, been in business 100 years. You got projects, they got ideas, and they got all the materials. Just go online, dixieline.com, see what they can offer to you. We're at halftime. Just a reminder, if you like sports, I write about sports every day of the week on my website, leehacksawhamilton.com. It's there first thing every morning. When we're done with this podcast, just punch it up on your cell phone or on your computer and just take a look at the volume of information I have that's on my website. Also, when you go to my website, there's a big orange box that's right on the homepage. Join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. That way you'll get on our email list for unique things that we're offering. We know that you can share. Tell everybody what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Subscribe. So the minute we put something up on the YouTube channel, you'll be notified with that. We invite you to go to social media because I'm on that all the time. Become part of my Twitter all-star team on X at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button. And when we're done with this podcast and all these topics on the table that I hand wrote, we're going to open it up to you, Fans Forum. John, just explain. I mean, we got over 230 live stream viewers at this moment. Just explain how everybody on the West Coast and the O Canada Network can join us on Fans Forum.
It's amazing how much information you provide and bring to the table.
You are right. I am flipping brilliant.
You're talking about all the stuff that's on the website, but then you go on the YouTube channel, you see all the stuff we've got there. I mean, there is more Hacksaw content coming out of you and with my assistance than I think a lot of like sports departments in major metropolitan newspapers. It's insane the amount of information. But now if you want to get involved, if you have a question or comment in the world of sports for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, drop your take in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum at the conclusion of Hacksaw's headlines. And you're right, there's a ton of people in line ready to get on board.
Okay, let's go to the second half. We're not done. Man, there's controversy everywhere, whether it's Black Monday in the NFL, what just happened with Padre ownership, or what just happened over the weekend vis-a-vis the Lakers and Sir Charles Barkley.
This is just terrible. Just a terrible story.
I punched that up. Charles Barkley goes haywire on network TV about J.J. Redick. You know, we've talked extensively recently in weeks just about the fact that TV ratings have just absolutely dumped in the NBA this season, down like 19%. We've talked about the quality of the game. I've talked extensively about bad attitudes and all that. So J.J. Redick at the end of last week in one of his post-game press conference says, I think the highly critical media is one of the reasons that TV ratings are falling. And Charles Barkley just lost his mind on TBS. He says, your crappy product and you're criticizing the media. Your crappy product keeps jacking up 100 threes a night and you're blaming us. And, and then he went into Laker history. You fired a good coach in Frank Vogel. You fired Darwin Ham, a good coach. He says the Lakers are flawed. He said the Lakers have become the same ugly girl you always dated. Geez, you need to put lipstick on that pig. And then he said, J.J. Redick, you're a dead man walking. Wow. Yeah, that ought to ignite a few viewers for NBA telecast and Lakers telecast. And I'll be interested to see how Shaq, sitting at the other end of that table with all the other anchors on This Is the NBA, how Shaq responds to Sir Charles. So what's your reaction to what Charles Barkley had to say about the Lakers?
He's right. Charles Barkley is right. And I love Barkley. He's like, no filter. He'll come out and say what's on his mind. But yeah, he's right. The game, especially the regular season for the NBA, it's not as entertaining as it's ever been. I mean, remember back in the day, we would have like Julius Erving down in the key. We'd have Kareem with the sky hook. We had all of these Hall of Fame players doing magnificent things. The passing of Larry Bird and the Celtics, we don't see anything like that in the NBA now.
No, all you got is guys launching threes and defense is optional.
Yeah,
I think the quality of the game is terrible. And I can't stand the attitude of a whole bunch of these players and their interactions with opposing players, interactions with reps, interactions with the fans, interactions with the media. I think it's a bad optic for the NBA. Okay, so you're pro Charles Barkley. Somebody go to Fans Forum. Your response, what Barkley had to say.
Well, do you think Redick really changed the the philosophy of the Lakers? Are the Lakers jacking up more threes now that Redick's in charge?
Well, that was the game plan. That was the blueprint, but the roster has been in and out. They just haven't had much consistency. But you know what's weird? I discovered this morning. In the Pacific Division, the Lakers and Clippers are tied for first place.
First place?
They're 20-15. Both of them.
Me?
First place.
Really?
But the division's kind of ragtag.
The Pacific Division, not the Western Conference.
No, the Pacific Division.
Okay.
It's a far cry from Cleveland, which I think is 24-5. Far cry from Oklahoma City, which is 31-5.
Yeah, those guys are going.
Yeah, that's the real deal. So, the Lakers and Clippers are in first place in their division. No, the division.
But divisions don't really mean anything in the NBA anymore, do they?
No. See me at the end of the season. We'll see who is where.
Just as an aside, the NBA will seed the teams in the playoffs where NFL will give preference to division champions. Right. I think the NFL should do it the way that the NBA does it.
Well, a lot of people have the same opinion. A lot of people don't think that Minnesota ought to be on the road as a wild card team at 14-3.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's all things there. We're not done with the controversy in the NBA. Well, just look at this story in Miami.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler. He got in trouble, huh?
Divorce court. Jimmy Butler. I don't understand this guy. This is a great talent. He's 35 years of age. He talked himself out of Chicago, got traded, talked himself off the Philadelphia 76ers roster, gone to Miami. And now he says, I can't find joy playing for the Miami Heat. Dude is making $49 million this season with a $52 million option for next season, and he can't find joy. And he pouts and he opens his mouth, and such junk comes out on a regular basis, to the point that Pat Riley said, enough is enough. They suspended him for 7 games, cost him $2.3 million. They're going to try to trade him. I don't know who wants the aging player who gets hurt a lot. Who wants the aging player with bad attitude? I mean, why Butler would just demean the Miami Heat as if I'm a victim, when we all know all the junk that he's been involved in Chicago and Philadelphia. He's on his 3rd team, and now he's kind of talked his way out of that team. He's pissed that Miami refused to give him a max extension last year. Pat Riley's response, you want to earn this money? You need to be on the floor all the time. He's taken time off for, quote, mental health issues, time off for depression because they were losing, time off because he's had some nagging injury. The guy is not there on a consistent basis. And now he's not going to be there ever again because Miami's removed him. Pat Riley said over the weekend after they announced the suspension, I want Miami Heat players who want to be Miami Heat players. End of conversation. Jimmy Butler, unbelievable. And your response?
I think Jimmy Butler's hanging out in South Beach with Tyreek Hill. Know, they're both angry on their teams in Miami. I really want to root for Jimmy Butler because he used to live here in Poway and he used to work out at Poway High School during the off season. But it sounds like I've heard the rumor of him going to Golden State, and that just makes a lot of sense to me.
Now, Golden State, why would I want that guy?
No, but he's an older guy, experienced, has won rings, and you figure Curry is kind of near the end of his career. So why not, put some stars around him to make one final run for the Warriors? So
you're going to take on $49 million contract with a $52 million option with a guy that's got a history of, I can't find joy.
Well, first of all, it's not my money. Okay. It's their money. But, he said he had mental health issues, and a lot of these guys do. And that's a legit issue. But how many times have you ever worked for an employer and you literally could find no joy? I mean, it's just the worst situation ever, where you wake up in the morning and you just don't want to go to work because you just don't like the situation. So hopefully the Pat Riley will just find a way to move him along. But you're right. It's a big contract, and that's going to be tough to move.
You want that contract and you want that attitude in Golden State?
No, but I think if you put him on a winner, the attitude changes. I mean, that's going to happen for sure.
Okay, that's all things Jimmy Butler. One other basketball story. This was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, the Aztecs and the Tritons both had a great weekend.
Yeah, big wins on the road. San Diego State went into Boise State. They had a full week to prepare after the horrific loss to Utah State at home. I'll tell you, so much joy just to sit there and watch their kids play their brand of defense. because the Aztecs are so big and they are so long and they're so athletic. And you know it's coming. It might not be in the first 8 minutes. It might be in the 19th minute of the first half, or it might be at the start of the second half, or it might be when there's a 10-point deficit and all of a sudden you can see in the eyes of the Boise State guards, they're freaking out. They can't get into their offense. And the Aztecs are manning up beyond the three-point arc and leaning on them and body banging them. And because of their length, they're intercepting passes. They're forcing turnovers. This is Boise State, which had a 70-10 record at home in that arena. This is Boise State totally unraveling at home as the Aztecs just leaned all over them with their defense. San Diego State sitting there at 9-3. They get Air Force midweek. Got to go to New Mexico after that. You know what's going to happen in the pit? This.
Oh, yeah.
It's so cool just to see Brian Dutcher just run these guys off the bench onto the floor. Next man up's going to do the same thing as the starters just did. And obviously, you know, what we saw in the comeback, come from behind win was really impressive. Miles Bird has become a star. Miles Bird's got no conscience. Dude's going to shoot threes and hit baskets. He scored 22. He single-handedly rallied them from the deficit. And then here comes wave after wave of a defense. I look at the Boise guards, and they just freaked. They could not get into their offensive sets with possession. And suddenly the clock's down to 7 seconds. You still haven't gotten the ball in on the post or into the corner. It's just a really good team. And UCSD, how about the Tritons? Next man up, you know, their team has lived a lot thanks to Tyler McGee's three-point shots. They go to Fullerton and they just run them out of their own gym. And Tritons are 13-2. And they are legitimate to win the Big West. Could you imagine San Diego, which had a reputation of being not a basketball town, might have two teams in March Madness from America's finest city? Tritons win the Big West.
Yeah.
Aztecs earn it by being nationally ranked coming out of the Mountain West.
I mean, that would be amazing. I mean, as a Triton alum, I was the PA announcer for the men's basketball team in my senior year at UCSD. And you play like in a high school gym, and there'd be like just parents and a couple of friends there, and they're playing small like religious schools. And to see where they are now is incredible. Yeah, they have a legit shot to win the Big West. They were up 40 points early in the second half. It was like 60-something to 20-something against Fullerton. Which, by the way, that Fullerton gym floor, do you see that thing with the orange palm trees and everything? That's just a disgrace. But, you know, USD has made the tournament a few times, but I think that was before we had the Steve Fisher, you know, doing some great things with the Aztecs. But love that. But that Aztec game, you're right, Miles Bird. Not only can that guy hit the three from deep, and he's fearless. He can play in the paint. But his passing is extraordinary. He'll make the no-look pass. He'll dish it off. He'll set up the alley-oop. I mean, he knows how to play Showtime basketball, and he's been great. I mean, Miles Heide was getting the offensive rebounds, putting balls back in the hoop. Taj DeGorville looked really good. He was on the court in the closing minutes of that game. I mean, it was great, and you still have no Reese Waters, and he's coming back. They say maybe for the New Mexico game. And then back to UCSD, they got a big game Saturday against Irvine. So this next weekend is going to be great for both teams.
Yeah, the bench bunch you just made allusions to with the Aztecs, they had 10 baskets. They got 10 baskets off the bench.
And that was without Farrell Compton, who was sitting. So, yeah, I'm seeing a lot here that I really like.
And by the way, Irvine, UCSD, Irvine's 13-2. That's big time.
Yeah, and I think they were the preseason favorite to win the Big West. So, you know, it used to be Santa Barbara was the dominant team in that conference. Now lately it's been Irvine, but the Tritons knocked off Santa Barbara 2 in a row, home and away. They can maybe do it with Irvine. Okay, if you have college basketball comment, feel free to jump on board. Fans Forum. Last topic on the table before we go to you, the followers on live stream. We got hockey stories everywhere. The high-speed sports wire. Here we go. Kicking off with the Oilers. Yeah, let's start with the Edmonton Oilers. Huge trade rumor. You know, the New York Rangers have just utterly collapsed. They've lost 16 of 21. I'm surprised at this point they've not fired the coach, Peter Laviolette. The Rangers have already made a couple of trades, including their captain, Jacob Trouba, who was dealt to the Ducks. They are shopping
their star defenseman, Aaron Fox, along with other people to Edmonton in what would be a blockbuster trade. The rumors out of Canada are that the Oilers want Aaron Fox, the defenseman from the Rangers. They would give up the expiring contract of Evander Kane, the expiring contract of Jeff Skinner, a number 1 draft pick, and also a number 1 pick that they got a year ago, Matthew Savoy, bright light young star. He's got his whole future ahead of him. It wound up being a 4-for-1 deal. Rangers would take on some big contracts, which give them big cap space at the end of the year. I don't know how the Rangers could face their fans though if they're trading all their star players away, because they're also shopping Michael Zibanejad, also in a separate deal to other clubs. So Aaron Fox might wind up in Edmonton. The Ducks. I have been highly critical of the slow growth process of the Ducks as they force-fed all their kids. Do you know the Ducks record as of this moment is 17, 18, and 4? They're almost to 500. We have not seen that in probably 4 years, 5 years. John Gibson, 36 saves the other night. John Gibson has kind of backwalled them in to becoming really competitive. And the kid players are starting to score goals for the Ducks, at least the first half of the NHL season. One who's not going so well, Vancouver Canucks. Man, this must be toxic in that room. They are shopping their 2 most expensive players, Elias Pettersson, goal scorer from Sweden, and JT Miller, one of their captains. Pettersson's earning $11 million. JT Miller's earning $8 million. They don't get along. The team isn't playing very well. They have a sub-500 record at home with all this firepower. And they're just not supporting the goaltender, Thatcher Demko, very well either. They're 7, 8, and 4 at home, one of the worst home records of any of the good teams in the NHL. So there could be an implosion coming in the Pacific Northwest out of Vancouver. And in soccer, we talked about this last week. The free agent window, transfer window in the English Premier League is opened. And we talked about all the names at Manchester City, Manchester United, and Liverpool that might be in the open. They could be signing contracts for delivery this June. Mo Salah, the big goal scorer, record-setting goal scorer, Liverpool, announced on Sunday, I am leaving at the end of my contract at the end of this spring season. He's going on the open market. I don't know if he's going to Spain, whether he's going to Italy. He is leaving Liverpool, that's in shockwaves because he's so popular and he's done so well. So those are names in the news, late-breaking stories there. John, you don't do a better job on this podcast, you might get traded too.
I know I might. Yeah. I mean, imagine if people got traded in corporate America. That'd be something, but
we just get brown envelopes.
Yeah.
And we don't even get a thank you. When you sign this brown envelope, you're terminated.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, the radio industry is brutal. You told me all the stories. I just looked it up. The Rangers are at the bottom of the Metropolitan Division of the NHL. So if you're a Rangers fan in New York, you don't like trading your veterans, but if you're going to open up all that cap space at the end of the year, maybe a Ranger fan could buy off on something like that.
I don't know, but these are good players. Now, granted, they're not scoring goals, and they're not keeping a puck out of the net. And they just gave Igor Shesterkin, their superb goaltender, the most expensive goaltending contract in the league. I think it's 11 years, $88 million. And, the point being, you've invested in all these guys. You're going to blow it up this soon, this quick? I mean, I grant you, they're not playing anywhere near like they could play. And I don't know if it's chemistry, if it's work ethic. It's not injury. They've not had a ton of injuries. It's just really weird in New York. But, hey, Canada Network, feel free, jump on board. You want to talk about what's going on in Edmonton, what might happen in Vancouver, and what's befallen Madison Square Garden. Those are topics on the table. This podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you. Projects for 2025. Think about Dixieline Lumber. John, we got a lot to cover. Fans Forum box is just full of comments. A lot of people don't like the way you're dressed, but anyhow, go ahead. Pick a topic. Let's get rolling. Here comes Fans Forum.
Yeah, you're already getting compliments on that sweatshirt. So, hey, let's go to Flegel. He says, a lot of Orange County sports spoken today. How do you guys compare Orange County to San Diego overall?
Orange County is really different. Orange County is huge. the demographics of Orange County are very different. There's such an unbelievable Latino communities in Orange County. I think Orange County is a market unto itself that has not been served by not having really good teams. You've heard me preach. If Artie Moreno put a good product back on the field, they would sell out that stadium. The amount of money they could make if the Angels were winning on a consistent basis would be equal to what Padre baseball has become. I don't know whether Orange County's got a psyche issue with being the little brother to LA, but I think it's a vibrant market unto itself. Now, granted, there's no USC there. There is Cal Irvine and there is Fullerton and all the smaller colleges, Chapman University, etc. There's not a big university there. They're not really the home to the Rams. The Rams view themselves as LA. Artie Moreno views his team as the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, which I never, ever said. They sent me a memo one time and said, "You're making reference to the Angels. We need you to use the corporate name." And I said, "I'm not doing that. It's the Angels." It's like, I don't call the NFL team that used to be here Los Angeles. I just call them the Chargers. I'm sorry. The Angels are Orange County's team. Have been, should be forever. Put a good product on. The market's really different than the San Diego market. I think it's a very diverse, dynamic Orange County market. And I don't know what the population, if you looked that up on your cell phone, what's the population in Orange County? Here's 3.5 million in San Diego County.
Right. Yeah. I would think that Orange County is probably similar to San Diego County in terms of population. This is my gut feel, because the overall LA metropolitan area has got to be like around 7 million, when you add everything up. So it just seems to me, though, Orange County is in one way it's distinct and separate from Los Angeles, but in another way it's all part of the sprawl of all of Southern California. So in some ways it lacks an identity when it comes to sports. Now, when the Rams were in Anaheim, and I think they could have played that up, then you would have had baseball and basketball. And God, would imagine if the Clippers were in Orange County, they could have made that work. But I have friends that are season ticket holders for the Angels, other friends that live in Orange County that are season ticket holders for the Chargers and for UCLA. But I think Orange County is probably going to be one of those markets. If you have a winner, they're going to show up. And so Artie Moreno has an opportunity to cash in. He just seems to be tripping over himself all the time.
That's a great question. Flegel, thanks for joining us on Fans Forum.
Okay, let's keep moving here, and we'll go to the aces of movies. And he says, "Is Mr. Mara okay? Why did he keep Dayball and Schoen?"
Well, Ace, I think it's a valid question considering how bad the franchise has fallen and how negligible the talent level is. The Maras are old-time family, old-time football. I will tell you this, the draft they had this past year, Joe Shane did a pretty decent job from a player personnel standpoint. Their operation on the field has not been good, And again, the amount of money they gave Daniel Jones at quarterback and then decided to get rid of him and eat the contract, take the cap hit, it's brutal. And obviously the mishandling of the whole situation with Saquon Barkley has just left a really bad taste in the mouth. But that being said, the Mara family has been very loyal to its employees and its coaches, and they're going to probably go one more year with these guys. And these guys got to get a quarterback. It is interesting, though, the way the dominoes have fallen. The Giants are going to draft third. And the feeling is the Giants are going to get access to Shadur Sanders of Colorado. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
I mean, him in the big market that is New York. Wow.
That'd be something. Yeah, that really would be. But, we talk about these legacy family names, like, in Pittsburgh, right?
The Rooney's.
Yeah. And a lot of other teams have had these longtime family traditions that we praise that have done so much for the NFL. And the Mara family is part of that. But the Giants, they had their run with Bill Parcells in the 80s and 90s, and then not a whole lot since then, right?
No. Well, Tom Coughlin was there.
Oh, that's right. He won a couple of Super Bowls.
Eli Manning.
Yeah, pardon me.
So, they've had a phenomenal run. They go back to the way back days in the 1950s where they're a dominant franchise in the NFL. But they've really hit on hard times. I was surprised this morning because I woke up at 4:30 and I just started checking my emails to see the network guys that I deal with. I expected to see, as the fatality list grew, coaches getting fired, Giants would be there. And first thing this morning, about 7 a.m. our time, Giants announced, the Mara families announced these guys are coming back.
You probably go back to the Y.A. Tittle era of the
I grew up in that era.
Yeah.
Charlie Connerly, way back, the Frank Gifford era.
Frank
Kyle
Gifford.
Rote, yes. Oh, the Andy Robustelli, the Giants were really good back in the day.
The New York Football Giants.
Exactly.
You know, or the G-Men, you know, and what was the sequence of events? Was the baseball team called the Giants first or the football team? Because they called the Giants. Because I know the baseball team was named after the skyscrapers in New York. Is the same thing with the football,
Yes.
I guess?
Yeah. It's just the New York Football Giants, and that goes back to the 1930s.
1930. See, when the baseball team moved to San Francisco, and that was my childhood team, I wanted the Giants to be San Francisco, not New York anymore.
You didn't want them to be the San Francisco Seals, the legendary PCL team?
Yeah, that would have been kind of cool, actually.
Yeah. That's where we are. Hey, good call. Ace, we'll see where this goes. They need a quarterback. How about Shadur Sanders in the Big Apple? That's a rumor with the third pick in the draft. Because the quarterback number 1 to Tennessee is going to be the Miami quarterback, Cam Ward.
Oh, yeah.
And the second pick is going to be a big stud offensive tackle going to New England. And that means Shadur Sanders falls to the New York Football
Would you
Giants.
take Shadur Sanders or Travis Hunter?
I take Shadur Sanders. Hunter's going to be the 5th pick, I was told. But it depends what your critical needs are. You know, New England has to get a left tackle, and they're going to take this kid out of LSU at number 2. And the Giants have to get a quarterback. That's Shadur sitting right there.
Right on, man. Bring some prime time to New York.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Okay, let's keep rolling here. And let's go to Willie talking about Jimmy Butler. He says, Butler makes $330,000 a game. He has a player option for next season at $52 million.
And he can't find joy. What a basket case. I'm tired of this. And he's been a problem, in addition to being a star player, he's been a problem everywhere he's been. Talked his way out of Chicago, you know, and he was a great player with the Bulls. Went to Philadelphia, did the exact same thing in terms of attitude. Great player there. He's a great 2-position player in Miami. Granted, they're not what they were before in the Alonzo Mourning era, but he's a cornerstone of the team, being paid as the cornerstone of the team. And I can't find no joy in Miami playing for the Heat. And I'll guarantee you this, Will, he's screwing with the wrong guy. He's screwing with Pat Riley. You think Pat Riley's going to take crap from anybody? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, we would kill to make $52 million a year and to play in the NBA and then just say, oh, I'm not having fun. There's no love here. It's just such a prima donna look, you know? And
you think there's a few of those guys running around the NBA?
well, yeah. And you know what'll end up happening is he'll end up getting what he wants, which he should get what he wants, but they just the drama behind it is just such a spectacle.
I would bet by maybe a week from today, when you and I are here and his suspension is up, I bet he's a Phoenix Sun.
Oh,
And then it's on to them to deal with all the crapola that Jimmy Butler is.
what's like Kyrie Irving? I mean, there's a whole cadre of these guys that just go everywhere crying wherever they are.
And David Stern just wants you to mimic what he said. I love this game.
David Stern, rest in peace.
On we go. Next one.
All right, so let's go here to RDL talking about the Padres, and it says the lawsuit claims the Seidler brothers made racist statements to Sheil Seidler because of her Indian/Asian descent. Makes it harder to sign Roki Sasaki and re-sign Ha-Seong Kim. It's an ugly situation. What do you think, Lee?
Well, I read the sentence about racial overtones about her Indian American descent, but I also read further comments that had something to do with she's not qualified from a business perspective. And my only point being the point person representing the team has to be approved by the commissioner's office. And I think has to have expertise in all things business related to the business of baseball. Now, granted, she's the widow of the legendary owner, but does that make her qualified if she's never done that before? And that's an issue. But the flip side, the other brothers, according to the lawsuit, and I read a chunk of the 91-page lawsuit, the other brothers are of the opinion she's not qualified. She's of the opinion They bought minority shares in the trust at low prices to get control of the trust. What they did was illegal. I cut law school the day they taught it at Ohio universities to go drinking uptown, so I can't tell you what's right or wrong.
Buying and selling shares in a family trust, you think that the number of people are like 4 or 5 people that would be buying and selling. So who did the brothers buy shares from? That's just odd. We have a history of Joan Kroc running the Padres after Ray Kroc. I mean, didn't Georgia Frontieri, didn't she have a husband that ran the Rams for a while?
Yeah, and he got killed and she took over control and wrecked it.
Okay. But still, this kind of reeks also of some sexism too. As a woman, she doesn't know what she's doing. She can't figure it out. I just am shocked that Peter Seidler just didn't lay out a plan, and it's legal. And this is what it's going to be. Maybe he did. And these guys are just, violating it. I don't know.
We'll see where this goes. It's not a good look as it relates to the Padres, who have done zero in terms of spending money in the offseason on any major league player. And we talked about this last week, but this is not a good optic for Padre leadership. We'll just have to see the ins and outs if this gets settled out of court, or if this actually winds up in court, but it's not good. And by the way, it's a baseball season that has to be played with a roster that's still not been completed. But again, they're going to move payroll. And if this is other baseball item that we talked about, Yankees and Padres have reopened trade talks for Luis Arraez, the first baseman, and the big money contract as a single sitter would go to Yankee Stadium. Padres would wind up getting a young pitcher and an outfielder as part of the transaction. The Padres would then be free of the $14.6 million commitment they have to make to Arraez. There's roster we have at this hour. I bet it's going to change before they go to the Cactus League next month.
Yeah, again, Preller is plotting. Preller's got a whiteboard with plan A through D. He's got it all organized. I think a rise to the Yankees makes a lot of sense. Another local podcaster that I like to follow is the Divine Sports Gospel. He's a good kid, good young man. And he was saying, why not trade a rise to the Yankees for Jason Dominguez, the young outfielder? That could make a lot of sense for the Padres and for the Yankees.
Except you got a center fielder now in Jackson Merrill.
But you put him in left. I mean, this kid Dominguez would probably be a big upgrade over Jurickson Profar.
Has not hit at all, and is coming off a major injury. Dominguez's name a year ago this time was mentioned in possible deals with the Yankees. In fact, he might have been thrown in and out of the Soto transaction when that trade was made. So,
well, his payroll number is what, like the league minimum?
Yeah, $750.
Yeah, so the Padres need some of that.
That's where we are. We'll see where this goes. But the Rise thing just happened in the early hours today before we came here to do the podcast. Next one.
Okay, just a quick thank you here to David Ramos. $20.25. Happy New Year, Lee and John. David, thank you. He's a loyal follower and listener.
Great to have you on board as part of our team.
Okay, let's go here to David. He's got a question for us. He says, the Astros, Rays, Guardians, Brewers, and Dodgers have the best pitcher development. Only one of these teams is being considered by Sasaki. Padres have invested a lot in development with little results.
Well, the results are they've traded the development players. I mean, that's why Preller, he traded 15 prospects last year to make the different transactions. The Dylan Cease acquisition, obviously what happened with the Soto trade, what happened with the trade with, was it Tampa or Miami to get Arraez? So, I mean, our prospects are playing somewhere else because we have signed them. They've signed high draft picks, but they've also moved those guys off the table. It is interesting that Sasaki only met with 7 of the 20 teams that returned the blueprint. For the people that don't know, Sasaki's agent and the Japanese pitcher said, these are the things we want to talk about. They came up with a blueprint and they emailed it to every one of the teams he wanted to have a face-to-face with. And they said, these are the questions we want answers to. We don't want anything else. We're not going to meet with Ohtani. We're not going to meet with you, Darvish. We're just going to meet with your baseball people, your medical people, and the people that run your baseball infrastructure. And they met with 7 teams. I was told by an agent they're going to narrow it down to 4, and there'll be a second group of meetings. The Padres and the Dodgers and the Yankees. I think the Red Sox might be the final 4.
It's just unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, imagine being a free agent and you have all these guys falling over themselves to try to sign you. Now here, Davis talking about the best pitching development in the league. Did you see that the Padres were ranked the #1 baseball organization? I think it was by Baseball America. I mean, do you give any credence to that? Is that legit?
They base that on how many prospects you've got. And the Padres have been ranked very high and respected very high for everybody that's in the farm system. The problem is AJ takes that chunk of players and trades them. I don't know how many prospects he's traded in the 9 years he's been here, but I bet it's got to be 30 at least.
At least. Yeah. And sure, there were some gems in there, but there's a lot of guys he's traded away that ended up being duds. So,
I understand that, but my retort to that comment is, have you gone to see a World Series game at Petco Park yet?
Well, do you think like keeping Mackenzie Gore on the team would have gotten the Padres to the World Series?
I don't know, but when you've traded the vast number of guys, Trey Turner.
But yeah. I mean, that one didn't work out.
Will Myers didn't work out.
But see, when that trade was made,
Eric Hosmer didn't work out.
No, well, we kind of knew the Eric Hosmer thing wasn't going to work. It was more about credibility. When they made the Will Myers deal, I was on board because he was like this hot young rookie of the year, most coveted, prospect. And Trey Turner, we had just drafted him. He was only a couple of months into the organization. They had to make him a player to be named later and wait until he was eligible to be traded. So we didn't really know what we had there. But I don't know. You can't keep all those prospects. At least Preller is wheeling and dealing. And there's been no better time in Padre baseball history than right now.
It's been electric. I grant you that. The last 2 years at Petco Park has really been special. But again, I retort. Have you seen a World Series game at Petco Park recently? No.
Well, okay. They've been there, but it's been a while.
David, thank you for joining us, being part of the Twitter or All-Star team here. Go ahead.
Okay, let's go here next to Derek. He goes, Hacksaw, please tell me that Darnold's crash and burn yesterday is just a one-off and not going to happen in the playoffs.
Detroit's a tough place to play. That defense just went after him, and he didn't look good. He looked out of sync. What did he throw for 133 yards? It was the worst game he's had. Now they got to go on the road. I thought they'd have their hands full against the Lions. That building is so tough at Ford Field to play in right now. And yet, I mean, I was shocked that those two receivers, JJ and JA, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, excuse me, I was shocked they had only 4 receptions between them. Darnold just couldn't find them.
No, he was under siege.
He was under enormous pressure, and they were dropping a ton of guys and giving him all kinds of looks, and he got all out of sorts. So we'll see now. Now they got a short week, and they got to come to LA, but they're going to play in nice weather. And I swear to you, SoFi Stadium is not going to be as crazy as Ford Field was. So, and I just don't think that the Rams have enough bullets in the gun to match all the bullets in that gun that Sam Darnold has.
Well, the weather was nice in the Detroit Stadium. It's an indoor stadium. I think that's going to be a good game, Vikings against the Rams, because the Rams have just been torching the NFL. I mean, they've been playing so well in the second half of the year.
They won 9 of 11 before they lost in the final seconds up in Seattle in a meaningless game.
Yeah. So that's going to be a hell of a game. And there, you go back in NFL history, there's been some great Vikings Rams playoff games, going back to the Fran Tarkenton and Chuck Foreman and all of those
Purple People Eaters.
And the Purple People Eaters. There's a lot there. But I'm rooting for Sam Darnold just because of the whole comeback story. Yep. And I really want to see Kevin O'Connell do well.
Tell you what, the NFC wildcard weekend games, that's pretty cool. Now, the AFC games in a cold weather, you may want to watch somebody go out there and suffer in Baltimore and Buffalo. But the NFC playoff games, wildcard, that's pretty good. Derek, thanks for being with us.
Okay, let's go here to Joey. And he says, the top 10 of the NFL draft is in place. What do you think the Raiders do at number 6?
I think they need to address offensive line, but the top lineman's going to go very early to New England. But if the top 2 quarterbacks come off the board, then they're going to have to spend their free agent money to go get a guy. They need help everywhere. Can you say Ashton Genty, Boise State? I mean, they need a running back because you need a lineman to block for the running back to protect whomever the quarterback's going to be. They just need so much help in so many areas. They had a lot of young guys defensively, and a lot of injuries. I I had great hope when the Raiders season started that Max Crosby, the free agent they got from Miami, Christian Wilkins, a big defensive tackle who I think is kind of the second coming of Aaron Donald. I thought Wilkins, the young kid they developed on the other side, Malcolm Kuntz, and then there was another number one pick. I think his name was Ty Evans. I thought that's a pretty good front four, front five, and they all wanted surgery. Nobody was there at the end of the season because they were all hurt. So the defense can come back and be better. I think I like their front seven. The secondary is awful wafer thin, but they got a lot of cap space. I was told the Raiders may have as much as 90 million cap space. Now they're going to have to convince somebody to want to come play for them, but they need help a lot of areas. But hey, Ashton Genty, lead running back, silver and black. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, they need skill players for sure. Now, let's just pretend for a minute, let's say Shedeur is the number one quarterback. You have Cam Ward as your number two.
No, Cam Ward is being viewed as a number one pick. A lot of people, Tennessee has the number one choice. And the rumor as of this morning is that Tennessee's going to take Cam Ward. And then the second pick would be New England, and they're going to take the left tackle from LSU. His name is Charles Williams.
Oh, okay.
Really good.
So those would be, it'd be Ward and Sanders would be the two that would be off the board.
Sanders would go 3.
Yeah.
To the New York Football Giants.
And if the Raiders at 6, those guys are gone. What do you think about Kirk Cousins maybe going to play for the Raiders?
Rental, but
they got the money. They got the cap money.
He's made a lot of money, thrown for a lot of yards. Has he won bleep? No. You going to do this again?
It's another Jimmy Garoppolo move.
Yeah, the Raiders historically have always looked at the shiny little object out there.
Yeah.
2 winning seasons in 22 years. You're going to do this again? Let Telesco draft what Telesco thinks really important, because he had 3 starters out of this draft. He played a ton of football for the Raiders. So see what he does with that. But to me, Ashton Genty would solve that issue.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think you can go find linemen in free agency, or you can go find linemen in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds. So interesting. We'll talk more about
sexy picks though.
No, who cares? I don't care about the damn shiny object up there. Raiders always look at that. I want to see a good football player.
Yeah, I need Gene Upshaw and Art Shell, right?
Damn right.
There you go.
That goes back 50 years, though, John. Okay, let's move a couple more here.
Okay, and actually, Joey had another comment, and he goes here, long-time listener, you guys are awesome. Let me know when you need a third wheel. I'm in.
Well, if John doesn't do a better job and dress better, you might be in John's chair.
One of the things that I want to do is invite members of Hacksaw's Insiders group to virtually join us on the podcast.
You want to do a special broadcast?
But I want to see that done more regularly.
You want to do a fabulous Friday broadcast?
Yeah, something like that. I think would be great. And have like a Hacksaw's roundtable and get, some of the Insiders group guys, give them invitations to join us. We can pop them up on a window and we can kind of rotate around the panel with comments and questions. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
You wouldn't like that, because then I'd be critiquing you about the what you address.
Hey, I'll just do the production and get everyone online, and I think everyone will be happy with that.
All right, we'll think about that Fans Friday thing. Well, everybody is part of my Insiders group. You have enjoyed the Insiders group, go to my website and register. So therefore, you might be qualified to be part of the Insiders group. You'd be auditioning in place of John.
Okay, let's go here to another John Hopkins. He says, hey, taking a break from shoveling snow here. Crazy Monday. Who would have thought the Seidler family would add to the craziness today? I want to give kudos to Denver for bringing back the Orange Crush uniforms against the Kansas City Chiefs. They should bring those back for the rest of the playoffs.
That was a good look. And they had the old logo, the old Bronco logo at the 50-yard line, because I was dialing back and forth. And for some reason, at the start of the Charger game, there was a switching problem at TV8, and they kept going from the Charger game. Also, in the Bronco game, it'd show up. And I'm saying, come on, get back to the Charger game. I want to see the Raiders. And they go back and forth. It happened about 3 or 4 times. But I looked, I said, oh, they're wearing the old orange, and the Orange Crush back in the day logo was kind of cool. And of course, Kansas City sat everybody, and Bo Nixon, those guys went crazy and beat them 38-0.
Yeah, that is a good look. I mean, that goes back to the John Elway era, and even before John Elway.
Exactly.
And remember the Broncos made a Super Bowl, I think in the late 70s. And who was their quarterback then? It was like an old timer guy. Name is escaping me, but it was before Elway. And it was like in 78, 77, they made a Super Bowl, I think.
Yeah, they had a journeyman.
Craig something. Yes, yeah, I can't remember. But going back, yeah, those uniforms are great. And I remember when they switched to the new blue and orange. I never really cared for it. But that's the uniform that I think Elway won the Super Bowl in, when he did the helicopter flip here in San Diego at Qualcomm.
You dress like that critiquing somebody else's clothing styles.
Well, you know what, though? There's a lot of weird uniforms if you go back in history in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like the Pittsburgh Steelers look like a bunch of guys that escaped from prison, with the black and yellow stripes and everything else.
Well, it's back with the 75th anniversary.
Okay.
That had to be what, in the 1990s? The 75th anniversary of the NFL, and everybody had an anniversary jersey uniform. And Pittsburgh had the weird striping, and the Packers had the big panels on the shoulders. Looked really weird. But
it is a good look. I like that look there. And by the way, John, I know is in DC, right?
Yes.
So he's shoveling snow. There's a lot of it out there. Is the Commanders playoff game going to be in DC?
No, Tampa.
Oh, okay. Well, then they're going to catch a break. As far as the snow goes.
A lot of wet snow there in the Northeast. John knows that I have a cottage in the Northern Adirondacks in upstate New York, just north of Utica, just northwest of Utica, which is in that snow belt right off the lake. It's 75 inches of snow Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just outside Utica. 75
That's 6
inches.
feet.
That's damn right. That's amazing. It's just because it's higher terrain and you get lake effect, and it snowed and snowed and snowed and snowed.
Well, I was talking with my daughter's boyfriend's father, and he told us a story. He was raised in upstate New York. When he was a kid, he stepped out of his second floor window and walked right onto the snow.
Yep.
Can you believe that?
There's a picture that just surfaced on the internet today of a place called Prospect Center, upstate New York, just north of Utica, in the snow belt. It's called the Tug Hill Plateau, higher elevation, and everything in the lake goes through there. They had a two-story church, and the guys were on the first level of the church shoveling the snow. You could not see the first level of the church. That's how high the snow drifts were because of the wind.
Well, thank God there's like a steeple up there. Otherwise, you wouldn't find the building.
Exactly. And to quote John Riley, I enjoy winter weather when it's on my TV.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go.
Let's do a couple more here before we go to social media.
Okay, let's go here to Richard. And fans forum, he goes, if the Dodgers get Roki, would LA be the most hated team in Major League Baseball? Would the loss be just another hit on the Padres offseason and their lack of spending?
Oh, that's Dodger fan just piling on. No, he can identify with most hated. I mean, during the Yankee era, evil empire, when the Yankees and Steinbrenner did this stuff on a regular basis. It is interesting, though, because Jim Bowden, former general manager, Major League Baseball, who now is a freelance columnist and does stuff for The Athletic and has been on ESPN, he just wrote a story early this morning about who's left in the bidding for Sasaki. And he thinks it comes down to the Padres and the Yankees, not the Dodgers, because he does not think Sasaki wants to be in the shadow of Ohtani and Yamamoto. He doesn't think Sasaki and LA would be able to get the equal number of endorsements, corporate sponsorships those guys get. He says the Padres don't have that history, so there would be an open market for there. But New York is New York, and that's number one. And he thinks that if the Yankees got Sasaki, the amount of addendum money that Sasaki would get from corporate endorsements would be monstrous because it's New York City. And all he has to compare with is Ohtani, because Ohtani got 15 corporate sponsorships through the Dodgers when he signed. You go through Dodger Stadium, and there are Japanese corporate sponsor logos everywhere in the stadium, which that's all the money that's pouring into the Dodgers. And Ohtani obviously is getting paid by virtue of that.
Yeah, but Ohtani is such an established star,
Sure.
And where Sasaki is like, what, 23 years old? Yep. I mean, he's a kid with a lot of potential. Why do we not hear about the Mariners in the mix for Sasaki?
Their ownership is just taking the checkbook away from Jerry DiPoto. And, you know, they have the great history of Ichiro Suzuki, but they've not really won. And they seem to have a streamlined budget. They're trying to stay south of $100 million. They got really great young pitching, which is very affordable. Don't have enough bats to put around their star outfielder, Julio Rodriguez. It would make a lot of sense, but I am surprised with their legacy of what they did with Ichiro, that they've not become a player in the Sasaki thing.
Wild. Hey, we got an update here from Willie, and he said, yeah, it was Craig Morton. Craig Morton. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Ex-Cowboy.
Yeah, Morton and Staubach rotated in Dallas before he was traded to Denver. So that's who I was thinking of. And I think that was in the late 70s when they made that. And that was the Orange Crush, the rushing, the defensive line guys.
Yeah, Randy Gradishar and company.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go up here to a couple more. There's so many comments here, and I try to get everybody in as I can. Let's go here to Callan. He goes, afternoon, Lee and John. Love the sweatshirt saw. What a win for Team USA last night. Congrats to Frank Vetrano on the extension. And using your line, the Ducks have turned a corner, but a long way to go.
Well, a long way to go. They're a 500 hockey team, but they have not been a 500 hockey team in a long time. And they're playing good hockey, close to the best. They are scoring goals. Finally, Leo Carlson, I think, is a star in the making. And Troy Terry's had a really strong start to this season than they had before. Young defensemen are playing well. John Gibson has helped with Luca Dostal in goal. They really look to be a complete team. And the amazing thing is they've dragged themselves from utter last place to being 500. And I grant you, they're not the elite team in the NHL. But they've done this without Trevor Zegras, who's supposed to be their next superstar because he's always hurt. And he's back on the injured list again. So we'll see. But this is a turn the corner point for them. I'd like to see it happen down here with the AHL San Diego Gulls. They're just having a tough time. They're 9, 19, and 4. Ooh. So, I mean, they've won only 9 of 32 games. They can't score goals. They have so many one-goal losses, and they're getting good goaltending. And they score some goals in bunches, but they keep losing one-goal games, overtime games, shootout games, etc. So that's because the Ducks have taken all the good kids, put them up north.
Well, we've talked a little bit earlier about the Orange County market and the dynamics there. Are they selling out games for the Ducks?
They've come back. They haven't been in the playoffs in a while. Stanley Cup was in the rearview mirror. Niedermeyer and all those guys. The crowds had dipped, but they've come back this season. And again, the Anaheim market, I think it's a bonanza of a market if you put a good product on the field. Marty Moreno, please pay attention. Memos coming your way as to how, if I were king, how I would fix it. But no, Ducks are drawing better now, and they're playing really good team hockey. It's not scoring 7 goals a game, but they're beating people 2-1. I mean, they beat Winnipeg. Winnipeg's one of the best teams in the NHL. They beat Winnipeg. And they were right in it to the bitter end with Edmonton just the other night. So they're playing much better hockey.
Hey, just to follow up, you said if I were king. You say that a lot, but just for fun, do you think you could be a general manager for a sports team? And if you were, what sport would it be?
I don't think so, because I don't know that I'd have the patience with the amount of money that's being paid and agents coming and asking for everything, including my firstborn. I just don't know that I could handle that. Every general manager I know loves it getting in, hates it by the time he's done because the pressure is so immense. And you go to a game and you watch your team and they lose and you're just heartsick, or you're angry and, you're under the spotlight, under the glare every minute of every day about why does this roster not work? Why did this guy make this mistake? What are you going to do about all these injuries? And your draft didn't pan out, or we're waiting on this guy you said was going to be great, hasn't got there yet. It's a tough job. But then again, they make a lot of money.
Well, they do. But imagine being a general manager and all that responsibility, and also being the head coach. The guys in the NFL, some of them like Belichick did double duty.
And not very well, I might add. And those situations, few and far between.
Few and far between. Okay. Let's get one more here in the live chat. This is from Chris. He goes, Rex Ryan definitely wants the Jets job, but now that his undeniable foot fetish is completely out in the open, will it be a roadblock in the hiring process? Side note, your spelling of Michael Penix in the best 15 is causing folks to blush. Show me your damn lightning bolt.
Oh, spell check must not have worked.
Yeah, they replaced the X with an S. I corrected it when we sent out the best 15 this morning, but I didn't go back to the website.
Oh, geez, John, don't leave me hanging out there.
Don't hang.
I write all this stuff. I try to spell check it all, but sometimes stuff falls through the crack. Hey, but you paid attention. You're telling everybody to check the best 15 minutes in sports on my website. You never know what you're going to find there.
You never know what you're going to find. That's what's fun about it, because that's part of the fun of Hacksaw too. Because every once in a while, you'll think one thing and say another. And sometimes you get yourself into trouble. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes you don't even notice that you've done it. And then it happens sometimes too with misspellings in your column. But the content's still great.
I write all that content. That's a one-man gang. You go on my website and just start today with what I wrote, starting with the NFL and the football page, and that goes to the baseball page and the basketball and then the hockey and English Premier League. That all comes off my keyboard. I do all the research and I write all that stuff. So
you do?
Yeah, if there's something that's misspelled, it just falls through the cracks. And I apologize for Michael Penix becoming something else.
Just make sure you have the junior on the end. Okay, let's do the social media. We'll go here to Rob talking about Black Monday. He says, if Vrabel did a great job in Tennessee, why isn't he still there?
Because their general manager won the war, and then the general manager, John Robinson, got fired. Vrabel did a good job. I mean, he won a pile of games in a tough situation with an aging quarterback. Ryan Tannehill was on his last legs, and Derrick Henry was about to become a walk free agent, and they had problems with DeAndre Hopkins. But in the big picture, he created a culture where you play Tennessee, you were going to get punched in the mouth. They were a very tough team to match up and line up against. And, he'll probably be a better coach the second time around. And the fact that he was in New England, a lot of people have the opinion he'll be the guy there, or he might be the guy with the New York Jets. I am surprised. We thought that as of today, there might be 7 openings in a league, but obviously Dallas has not made the decision yet. The Raiders have yet to make their decision. So maybe there's only going to be 3 or 4 openings, and there's an awful lot of hot names out there.
Does Vrabel give you Dan Campbell vibes?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he does too. He just seems like a real dynamic leader. He's out there pushing his guys.
He's a little bit more stoic. Campbell is.
Well, yeah.
Oh, he's just great to be around.
But how many ex-Patriots now have found their way into coaching? There's a lot of them.
A lot have, and a lot have failed. I mean, it's one of the raps on Belichick. A lot of people said, well, I'm hiring this guy off the New England staff. I'll give an example. One of his great offensive minds was Charlie Weiss.
Oh, yeah.
Weiss was a head coach a couple places. Didn't work. Went to Notre Dame. That was even worse. So there's questions about, was it Belichick or is it Belichick's staff? Because the fatality rate of guys who have been hired off Belichick's staff to be head coaches it's phenomenal.
Well, it's not just the coaches, it's also the players, because Vrabel and Mayo, have there been others?
In terms of coaching, not that I know of, but more his assistant coaches have gotten head coaching jobs and has not worked out at all.
It just goes to show you how hard it is to be successful.
I think it is. So therefore it spins back to is Belichick's brilliance, not Charlie Weiss's brilliance or Romeo Crennel's brilliance or some of these other guys that got head coaching jobs and then got fired.
But there's some guys that they're better as a coordinator. They're not leaders of men, like a Campbell is.
Yeah. I always use the phrase, you ask back when the Jets hit the eject button on Robert Salah. I thought he was a really good coach, but as a head coach, he was a hell of a defensive coordinator. He wasn't a good head coach because you can't manage everything.
It's like Norv Turner.
Yeah, exactly.
There's some guys that are just like that.
Yep. All they're great at is these X's and O's and this scheme, and that's their world. But you put them at the head of a job, and they got to manage offense and defense and coordinators and special teams and player problems. It's just too big for them.
It's like the Peter principle, right? You get hired to your highest level of incompetence.
And that's how you end up working with me.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, let's go more social media.
Okay, let's talk here about the Chargers going into the playoffs. This is from Donald. He goes, you can't fault the Chargers for beating the teams by the schedule makers made for them to play in 2024. Consider how they struggle due to Herbert's ankle and foot issues, which hampered his ability to move in the pocket or use his capability to run. Since then, they've had key position players get healthy. Younger players like McConkey excel as premier receiver.
No doubt about it. They've won 11 games. You can't take that away from them. But that being said, the scoreboard does not lie, Don. When they played good teams with plus 500 records, they lost every one of those games. They've beaten only one team with a winning record, and that was Denver. And they struggled in those games to beat Denver. And you go back and look at that schedule. You just break it down, because I did. the teams that they lost to had a combined record, I think, of 54-28. The teams that they beat had a combined record like 48-96. So, I mean, they beat up all the bad teams. And when they played somebody good, AKA Pittsburgh punched them in the mouth when Pittsburgh was doing well. Arizona ran over them. Look what Kansas City has done. Look what Cincinnati almost did. What Atlanta almost did, except they gave that game away. So, hey, they're in the wild card. I think they have a legitimate chance to beat Houston. We're going to talk about that on Thursday. We'll do a breakdown of each of the wild card games. But once you get beyond that, and then they go play the big boys the following week, I just don't know how far they can go. I love Herbert. I just think he's so much fun to watch. He's got such charisma and such brass to make plays, and just he has no fear. He's just a great, great NFL quarterback.
I just like to watch the silhouette of Herbert throwing the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Michelangelo's David, like this perfect athlete, But now you got Quentin Johnson had a big game, and McConkey's been playing great. Now you got two good receivers. What's the status on J.K. Dobbins? I saw he kind of torqued his knee again.
He got dinged, but he came back and he played. They don't have Gus Edwards. I don't know if this ankle thing is chronic, whether they're a little bit thin in the running back thing, but they got tight ends to throw to, and if they can protect. But again, you're not playing the Carolina Panthers with the New York Football Giants. You're playing Houston with Will Anderson and a fierce pass rush. Is that offensive front hold up? Justin Herbert, I think, got sacked 42 times this year, and he took a lot of hits. He stayed in there. He made a bunch of plays, and you can't argue with the fact that he's got 24 touchdowns and 3 picks, which is a hell of a number in this league. But when you start playing real people, starting next week, those defenses are much, much tougher.
NFL playoffs, man. Here we go.
Love it.
Here we go.
Hi, Don. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, let's go here. Talk some Dodger baseball, and this is with Venega. He says, remember, Arenado has a no trade clause. Arenado wants to go to a winning team. I don't know why. Who would think a trade to the Angels is a possibility? Arenado will shoot that down in a heartbeat. He wants to go to the Dodgers, but they have Muncy, and the Dodgers already vomited to him as their third baseman.
Well,
committed to him. It must be a typo. Another typo.
Oh, that fell through your spell check too. Let's be honest here. Arenado is a Southern California guy. He put 6 teams on the list to accept trades to. The Angels were one because he's an Orange County, LA guy. But the Angels said, we'd like to talk. But they said, if you want him, you want Reed Detmers, my former #1 draft pick starting pitcher, you got to pay a piece of the $60 million that is owed to Arenado. The Cardinals said no. The Angels said, well, we're not going to do this. But no, he said he'd accept a trade there, accept a trade to Houston, but he changed his mind on that. And then obviously you got some other clubs. Padres cannot afford him. That's a big issue. That's a lot of money for the next 2 years. St. Louis is kind of dropping hints. Maybe they'll just keep him now because they can't find somebody to take him, because everybody wants St. Louis to pick up a piece of the $60 million that's owed him. But he was in the running to come to the Angels, and the Angels were really interested. And you bring him home, he might be a good player for 2 years. That's all you need to get 2 years out of him and fix your alien franchise.
Well, I think Red Sox think they're going to get him, right? I mean, that's where the rumor is. And I heard they were going to play Arenado at third, and they were going to move
Raf Devers.
Yeah, Devers to first. And then that was going to be, the Casas kid would be the one man out.
He's the one that's on the trade block that the Padres had interest in if there was a Dylan Cease transaction. But Boston's had such a good offseason in terms of acquiring pitching. I don't know that they want to take on Cease's final year of his contract.
Hot stove is cooking.
Oh, always cooking. Always some baseball to talk about.
Okay, let's get some more Dodger talk here. This is from Coconuts. And he goes, a Little League coach could manage the Dodgers. Until the end of last year, Dave Roberts was a below-average manager. He plays his favorites, which costs us more wins than anyone. Horrible judgment for the lineup card he trots out, and his use of the bullpen. 98 wins last year? That's crazy with one of the best rosters of all time.
Coconut, the only problem with that is it may not be all his decision. That may come down in the memo that the analytics guys send down every afternoon at 3:30 to Dave Roberts and his staff, which is a recommendation of this is who we think you should use. First guy out of the bullpen. This is what we think you should do with the batting order. So it's not all his choice. That being said, if you lean the wrong way, taking a lead off first base, we're going to pick your ass off. Coconut, I think you just got picked off. Do you know Dave Roberts has the all-time winning percentage in the history of baseball of any major league manager?
Wow.
His winning percentage, I believe, is 627 now, by virtue of what happened this season, what happened with the World Series. 627. That's the greatest winning percentage of anybody, not just the Walter Alstons and the Tom Lasordas. I'm talking any manager, anytime, who's managed over 1,000 games.
Yeah, but a little league coach can manage that team. Now, granted, yeah, they've been blessed with talent. He's had a lot of weird stuff go down, like the Astros and the trash can in the World Series. You can't blame him for that.
They've mishandled pitching in the playoffs. I concur with you.
Yeah.
But that might not have just been his decision or Mark Pryor's call. That might have come from upstairs.
Yeah, but how much impact does a manager really have with the X's and O's? I think the manager is more impactful as a leader and as a clubhouse guy and an inspiration and a way to coach up guys rather than the lineup card or the pitching rotation.
It's just not in-game things, because the game comes down to my pitcher's got to throw strikes or my pitcher can't leave a ball hanging out there. But Dave Roberts has no control over that. What Roberts did in terms of that clubhouse, I've been in that Dodger clubhouse. There are a lot of personalities in Dodger clubhouse. There are a lot of guys making a lot of money in that Dodger clubhouse. And that clubhouse is this.
Oh, they're tight.
It's all is together. And you talk about Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, they control that clubhouse. That Dodger clubhouse with all those rich guys, that was like this. What was the Padre clubhouse like the last couple of years? The Soto era, the Machado era? It was imploding. It was exploding.
Well,
everybody was
last year was better.
Yeah.
For the Padres.
Right.
Last year was better.
But prior to that, no.
No, yeah, you're right. Now, speaking of lineup cards, has there been any update on that golden at bat idea?
It's still in discussion stage. Nothing's going to happen for 2025, but it's being kicked around out there. I don't want to see that. But Dave Roberts, in the big picture, Dave Roberts manages people and personalities. When you got a bunch of rich guys, that's not always easy to operate.
No, it's not. No, not at all.
Okay, let's do one more social media.
Okay, we'll talk some NBA here, and this is with El Madriado. I was watching an NBA game with my nephew a few weeks ago. He got bored and got up and left. He asked, "Where are all the dunks? All I see is threes."
We had a game last week where Golden State shot 51 threes.
51?
51. And the league is seriously considering changing the three-point arc, moving it out to the point it would start on the sidelines and come out. You would not get three in a corner, which is the shortest area.
Yeah.
So they got to do something. The game is so different, and defense is optional. That's really bad until you get to the playoffs, maybe. But the game just, I don't know, part of me says the game's unwatchable. I love watching the talent and the athleticism, but all they're coming down is launching threes, and nobody's playing defense at the other end of the floor. Game is different.
The analytics guys figured it out, right? They say you got to take a lot of threes and layups, and don't do the mid-range game. But imagine if they made a dunk worth three. I mean, that would be a radical change, and we could see a lot more dynamic in the key.
Oh, you're really changing with the rules. You're probably running around talking to your other friends, the three other friends you have, that you'd like the golden at-bat rule too.
The golden at-bat is nonsense.
Too much French pastry, John. Shouldn't eat French pastry.
Okay.
Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed this podcast. We are here Mondays at 1, Thursdays at 1. We do sports talk the way it should be done. We value having you be part of us. This podcast brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. You got projects, they got materials. You got projects, they'll give you ideas at Dixieline Lumber. John, take a deep breath, get your scouting report ready. We'll see what Thursday's matchups look like, because we'll break down the NFL playoffs. We'll probably have some more Black Monday fatalities to talk about, and who knows what's going to happen in baseball, because the stories just continue to evolve. We're 6 weeks away from the start of the Cactus League and the Grapefruit Circuit.
Plus, we have college football playoffs.
Oh, yes, for sure. And we'll talk about that too. Hey, thanks for being with us. Great to have you part of our team. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you'll join us. Hope you'll tell your friends about us. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a 5-star rating on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.